Merry Christmas! Well, you might feel that that is a worn-out greeting by this time. I should have said maybe Happy New Year, but after all, the presents are all unwrapped, except in church, the music has all but stopped, and many people are taking down their decorations. And we just celebrated New Year's Day. But let me remind you that we are still in the 12 days of Christmas. Our culture really does not recognize the 12 days of Christmas very much. Indeed, many media, including the Today Show, counted the 12 days before Christmas rather than after. So, you may feel a bit of a letdown on the second Sunday of Christmas. What should we do with all the problems in the world today? Natural disasters, political unrest, recent events like the horrific fire at a nightclub in a Swiss village which killed more than 40 people, the upheaval in Gaza, Ukraine, and now Venezuela. What can one person do? No, I don't know, but the Lord does. In other countries, especially in South America, the gift giving is not on Christmas Day, but on Epiphany, the end of the 12 days of Christmas. When you think about it, we celebrate the gift of the Magi on Epiphany, bringing gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So it makes sense to honor those gifts by giving gifts to each other, even more on Epiphany than on Christmas. In the church where I retired from in North Carolina, the tradition is for a huge Epiphany service called the Feast of Lights, which was almost as big as Christmas. The Magi followed the star to worship the Christ child, and people from all over the area, from other churches and non-church people, came to that service to celebrate Epiphany. That church, which held more than 700 people, was packed for that Epiphany service. However, we are not in South America or in North Carolina, so back to the letdown and wondering what we should be doing now that mostly Christmas is over. I dare say that that might be what Mary and Joseph were asking in the gospel that we have today. Ironically, today's readings is after the Magi's visit, and why we have this reading before Epiphany is a mystery to me, but in any case, with all the excitement around Jesus' birth, Mary and Joseph realized that that was over. The angels and shepherds were gone, the Magi's visit was over, and the reality of raising a child must have been somewhat of a letdown. And what should Mary and Joseph do next? They had come to Bethlehem because of the census. Where should they go? I don't know, but the Lord did. Then Joseph has this dream, and in it an angel appears with clear directions for Joseph. The angel wants Joseph to take Mary and the Christ child on an arduous journey to a foreign country. They had made the journey to Bethlehem, and that would be nothing compared to going to Egypt, which would be at least several days or maybe weeks' journey in difficult terrain. I doubt that Joseph had ever been to Egypt before or knew much about it. And where would they stay? They had no idea. They didn't know, but the Lord did. Amazingly, Joseph followed the direction of the angel and made that journey. We really don't know how long they stayed, or where they were, or what part of Egypt where they stayed. Most historians date the death of Herod at 4 BC, which means that actually Jesus was born at least 4 years before the date of Jesus' birth in our calendar, the calendar system which dates back to the 6th century. And the lectionary leaves out a significant section where Herod realized that he had been outwitted by the Magi and determines to eliminate the possibility of Jesus being alive because he was declared a king by ordering the death of all children 2 years old and younger. Well, maybe the lectionary leaves this horrific section out, not to distract from these readings, but maybe it is actually because we have a feast, or an observance, I should say, of the Holy Innocents on December 28th. And you can see that in the bulletin. That's the featured photograph. In any case, it could have been months, or maybe even years, between these two sections of the gospel reading, the section where they go to Egypt and the section where they come back. Again, we don't know how long they stayed, and I'm sure being in a foreign country would be difficult, especially for them to be away from their family and friends. They were probably wondering if they would ever get back to Israel. Where should they go, and what should they do? They didn't know, but the Lord did. And again, an angel appears to Joseph in another dream and tells him that Herod is dead and that they should return to Israel. Once again, Joseph obeys and returns, only to be warned in another dream to go to Nazareth. Certainly, Joseph's openness to the Lord's guidance is impressive. And I have a question for each of you today. Have you ever had a direction from the Lord, something like what Joseph had? And some of the most meaningful conversations that I've had with faithful parishioners through the years have been about the guidance that they have received from the Lord. Often it has been during times of letdown or times of confusion about what to do next. Sometimes it has come in dreams, or what the Bible calls a still small voice. Elijah the prophet was afraid of Queen Jezebel, who sought to kill him for doing away with the false prophets of Baal. He was the last of the prophets standing after Jezebel eliminated all the others. In his fear, he ran away as far as possible and hid in a cave. What should Elijah do? He didn't know, but the Lord did. God came to Elijah, not in a hurricane, not in a powerful earthquake, nor in a blazing fire, but in a still, small voice. That voice led him to come out of hiding and anoint Jehu as king of Israel and Elisha, the prophet, to succeed him. And it's a great story. You can read it more in chapters 18 and 19 of 1 Kings. I know that I've had an experience of a still small voice, and forgive me if any of you have heard this before. It happened shortly after we moved to Tampa. I learned that the parish where I retired was in significant turmoil because the rector who followed me was accused by a female associate priest of misconduct. Well, I happened to run into one of my former parishioners in a New York airport, no less, who turned out she was actually currently on the vestry. And she told me about the turmoil and said to me, "I wish you could come back." And I replied that I was honored by that sentiment, but was sorry that it was not possible for a former rector to come back. After we returned to Tampa, I was in one of my prayer times, and my former parish was on my mind. I was praying for the people of that parish, and I asked the Lord, what could I do to help? I didn't know, but the Lord did. And then this phrase came to me like a still small voice. How do you know if you don't ask? At first I dismissed it, but it just wouldn't let me go. How do you know if you don't ask? Over and over again in my prayer times. Could it be referring to what the vestry member had said, "I wish you could come back"? Finally, late one night, after talking it over with my wife, I wrote an email to Bishop Michael Curry, who recently retired as presiding bishop. He was then Bishop of North Carolina. I told him the whole story and how the phrase, "How do you know if you don't ask?" kept coming to me in prayer. And I believed that it was about going back to the parish where I retired. Bishop Curry replied to me at 6 a.m. the next morning, and his reply shocked me. He said, "That is a grace-filled idea." So the long and short of it is, I did go back, unheard of, to go back to a parish as an interim rector after being retired from being the rector for over 10 years. And I gave them 6 months to find a new rector. I was attempting to do some healing of the divisions within the parish. Some people had sided with the former rector, some people had sided with the associate priest, and there was unfortunate divisions within that parish. So I did my best to try to heal those divisions, and after 6 months, which is a short time to call a new rector, they did call a new rector, and he has been there over 10 years, and I'm glad to say he has had a successful time as rector. I didn't know, but the Lord did. As I mentioned in the beginning, as we enter 2026, there is a lot going on in our world, in our country. A lot of it seems beyond our control, especially natural disasters and the conflicts in our world and nation. I suspect that I'm not alone in wondering, what can I do? At all times, but especially at times like these, an openness to the Lord's direction is critical. We need to listen for the still, small voice in prayer. Or maybe it's the guidance of a dream. Or maybe the advice of another person. Jesus says, "Seek and you will find, knock and it will be open to you. For the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be open." Seek the Lord's guidance, and it will come. It may not be a big thing that God would ask you to do. It may be as simple as helping a neighbor. I don't know, but the Lord does. Again, Merry Christmas, and for one of the last times I will say it, as we look towards the Feast of the Epiphany, please be on the lookout. The Magi's guidance came through a star. Joseph's guidance came through dreams. My example came through a still, small voice, as Elijah's did. And there are many other ways the Lord could speak to us. Let us be open to the guidance of the Lord. What should we do? I don't know, but the Lord does. In the name of God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit.